and welcome to another edition of the Ben Davis Sports Talk Show. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I'm Bernie Probinski, and we are certainly glad to be joined today by number 24 for the DeKalb Barons, Luke Recker. And Luke, appreciate you being here today and taking time out of your holiday schedule. And God, it's hard to believe it's been almost 15 years since you last set foot on the Baron hardwood. But just kind of catch us up to date on your current family life and where you live and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, lots happened in 15 years. I'm actually living in Iowa City, Iowa. Married, have 2 kids. I was fortunate enough to play professionally for 7 years after college, and since that time I've been in the real world for 2 years and enjoying life.
Say around 20 years ago when you were 10, 11, 12 years old, when did you realize the basketball was your passion? Because if I recall correctly, you were a pretty good baseball player back in the day.
Yeah, I loved all sports. Obviously, I got to grow up and play old baseball, little league at Thomas Park, and had some great memories of that. And basketball was something I really enjoyed. My family enjoyed it. As a lot of people are familiar with my sisters. I have 4 sisters that played and were very successful as well. So it was just kind of a family thing and kind of a natural progression. My dad played, and owe a lot to this community, and obviously Coach Hawkins was a big influence on my life as well. So it just kind of, that's the way it panned out, I guess.
The Barons had just kind of come off the Gary Merrill years, and Coach Hawkins had been here for a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. Going into high school, at that time, what was your impression of DeKalb Baron basketball? And as you mentioned, Coach Hawkins.
I was a big fan of Coach Hawkins. He's a very intense guy, and he demands a lot out of his players, and he plays a really fun style of basketball. He let us play, and it was a very enjoyable time in my life from a basketball perspective. It's just, I've been very fortunate and blessed to be able to play with a lot of great players and a lot of big games. And seriously, I'm not joking, some of the best times of my life were when I wore the DeKalb Baron jersey.
Tell us about that freshman season. If I recall correctly, the Barons the previous year, I think, was Coach Hawkins' first year, where they had been upset by Fremont in the sectional, and people were kind of, does this guy know what he's doing or whatever, but you came in as a freshman. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that freshman year in high school, how you grew as a player, and then also, if I recall correctly, you defeated an undefeated Leo team in the regional after winning the sectional.
It was a memorable year. I started off on varsity right away, and there were 4 seniors on that team. They were just really great guys. Here I was as a freshman, young kid basically, and Andy Schmidt, Mike Christner, Nate Tapman, Matt Depew, they really welcomed me. And if I recall correctly, I think about the 5th game of the year is when I started starting. And Nate Tapman actually went to Coach Hawkins and said, hey, I think Luke should be starting, and kind of, I wouldn't say gave up position because he was still an important part of the team, but that tells you a lot about Nate's character and the guys I played with. So it's just, I was very fortunate, and it was such a fun year. We won sectional and beat an undefeated Leo team with I think John Newhouser played Butler, and just like I said, it's great memories. I remember them like it was yesterday.
And back then, obviously, it's even though it's getting further and further from people's memories, it was still one-class basketball. Yeah. And the sectional there was a lot of community pride, if you will, that went with that. What was it like winning that first sectional?
I mean, it was huge. I was a big fan of one-class basketball. Just like you said, there was a lot of community pride. The gyms were packed. Just a really neat atmosphere. And to win sectional was, I don't think DeKalb had won it in quite some time, and it was just one of those special things. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of 4 sectional championships here. And like I said, it's just there's something special about Indiana high school basketball.
Moving on to your sophomore year, who were some of the seniors you played with that year, and just touch on that sophomore season a little bit.
Sophomore season was another successful year. Josh Barnett, I believe, was a senior that year. Jason Magnuson might have been another one. And we kind of carried over success from Andy Schmidt and those guys leaving, and Jeremy Feaster was a really good player. We had a lot. Kerry Vick, Adam Ward. We had a lot of good players. I was blessed to be able to play with some good talent, and not only good talent, but good people as well.
People, I think, really started to recognize, if I recall correctly, DeKalb Baron basketball, and there was very high expectations for that junior season. And you just had a team that. You look back at the number of Division I players. What, you had 2 or 3 Division I players, and the size that you had. You had all facets of the game. Tell us about the expectations going into that season, and then, hate to bring up bad memories, but the way that season ended with Bishop Minor.
I think I committed to Indiana after my sophomore year. It was during my sophomore season, so I'm coming into my junior year, and I think at that time Jeremy Feaster committed to Wisconsin Green Bay, and a lot of expectations. And I believe, if I recall, we were 24-2 that year with 2 losses to Fort Wayne Dwenger, and Fort Wayne Dwenger was obviously a very talented team. It's funny to this day. I still have some correspondence. Every now and then, especially now with the social media and stuff, with like BJ Coretta. And those guys won't let it won't let it die. They're still proud of those 2 victories against DeKalb, and I think they ran a triangle and 2 against us. And it was just one of those off nights. I don't think I played very well. I don't think Jeremy played very well, and it still stings to be honest with you, because that was probably the most talented team I was on at DeKalb.
That was just a great ball club, as you said. Just those 2 losses to Dwenger between the junior and senior season. Expectations are going to be sky high with you being a senior and the rest of the seniors that year. But tell us maybe how Coach Hawkins's off-season program worked, especially at that time, leading into that year that the expectations were so high.
Well, I think part of the reason that we were a good team is because of how hard we worked, and it wasn't unusual for us to be at the gym at 6 a.m. During the summer. We would do that 4 or 5 days a week. I mean, we really worked hard, and it was a lot of fun, but it was tough work as well, and we had high expectations. And I played with some good players as well: Nate Brown, Shane Monroe, Luke Barnett. Then some of the younger guys were coming up as well, the class below us, and we were a good team. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, we ran into a tough game against Kokomo in the semi-state, but it's tough. I mean, I think my senior year, Bloomington North won it, I believe, and they had future NBA players on that team with Jared Jeffries and Sean May, and I think Queth Duaney went to Syracuse. A kid named Jabril Conte went to Indiana State. So while we were good, I mean, they were really good. Coach Hawes is a good coach. I mean, at that time, obviously, I knew my future was in basketball, and but we had a lot of multi-sport athletes. Luke Barnett was somebody that played all 3 sports, I believe, and it's almost like it's a full-time job, or you got to play it year-round to really get the best out of yourself.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the sectional championship game your senior year. Just one of the most fun games and one of the most fun atmospheres I've ever seen. And I'm very fortunate we have that game on tape, and we show it a lot of times. And people will always comment, "Can you show that again? Can you show that again?" What a good game that was.
Yeah.
Tell us about that game, and then about that Angola ball club you played in the sectional, led by Division I player Charlie Wills.
It was a great game. Those were the games you didn't like going into playing, because Angola, I don't know what they are now, but they were a 3A school, a smaller school. They weren't in the NHC. It was one of those tough games, and anything can happen in tournament time. That's what's so special about Indiana high school basketball. And Charlie Wills is obviously a really good player. He had a lot of success at Wisconsin, even went to a Final Four. They were very talented. They very easily could have won that game, but luckily we were able to pull it out. It was a fun game, great atmosphere, and those are some very, very special memories.
Like you say, they had a chance to win. I think 1:30 to go was either tied, or they might have even briefly taken the lead there. Did there any other games during the regular season stick out to you, memories that you have? I know we have one on tape that we show. I think it's the game against Wayne that went double overtime maybe. And
there were just a lot of great memories from my days at DeKalb. Some of the battles with East Noble were great, playing against Coach Johnson and Nick David and other guys over from East Noble. Was really those were tough games. Just in general, I have such fond memories of my time at DeKalb. What a great time in my life, and got the opportunity to play with some great people, and the support was wonderful, and it's very special to go to play in packed houses in Indiana, because I was fortunate enough to play in a lot of places and against a lot of great players, and they always want to talk about Indiana high school basketball and what it was like to play basketball here, and they want to know if the stories are true of packed houses and last one out of the town, turn off the lights, etc. Stuff like that, and I tell them it is, because that's the way I remember it, and that's the way it really was when I played.
Talk about the last day, you played for DeKalb. I know you talked about the Bloomington team that was very talented, but you had the morning game against Plymouth. Just what a performance. You guys just kind of ran Plymouth off the floor, but then that night Kokomo just threw a very nice game plan, if I recall correctly, and it was a tough way to go out, but as you go on, I'm sure the good times overshadow the bad times.
Kokomo had a great game plan. I think Basil Malby was their coach then,
Right.
and they. One thing about playing 2 games in a day, Coach Hawkins was great at preparing us for games, and your focus all week was on Plymouth and that first game, because you got to obviously win the first game before you can move on. They don't want you thinking about the second game, and then you don't have a lot of turnaround time. You really play your game, you go back to the hotel, try to rest up, and come back a few hours later and get ready for that next game. And Kokomo had a great game plan. I think they played this switching defense. It was really tough for us, and I don't think I had the best game of my career, certainly, and it was one of those. It was tough because we always dreamed of going to the state finals and playing in the state tournament, and unfortunately never got there.
Keep in touch with a lot of the guys you played with?
A few guys. It's like you said, it's been a long time, but you try to talk to guys when you see them. I think I ran into Jeremy Feaster last summer, and it's always good to see those guys. They're all doing very well for themselves, and really proud of those guys. Very,
very prestigious honor. You were named Mr. Basketball in the state of Indiana. Tell us about what that means to you, or what that meant to you at that time, and then maybe having the opportunity to play in the McDonald's All-America game.
It was a great honor. It's something I really am proud of. At the time, I probably look back on it now, I'm more proud of it. At the time, it was just like, oh, okay, cool. I get to wear this #1 jersey for the Indiana Kentucky All-Star game. But now, it's something to see your name up there with some of the great players, and there's some incredible players that had the honor of wearing the Mr. Basketball jersey, and I'm just fortunate enough that I can put my name in there as well. The McDonald's game was another great experience. Get to play with some great players, and what an experience that was. And most of those guys now you see on TV on a daily basis and on SportsCenter stuff, and I'm happy for all those guys that have done well.
When you committed to Indiana your sophomore year, tell us a little bit about how the recruitment process worked for you.
It was a strange recruiting process, to be honest with you. It wasn't, like you see on TV or in the movies. It was basically Indiana had me come down to a game, and after the game, Coach Knight kind of talked to me for a little bit, talked to my parents, talked to Coach Hawkins, and he invited us down like 2 weeks later. And if I recall, we were sitting in his office in Assembly Hall, just on a couch, and he looks at me and he says, "Luke, would you like to play for Indiana someday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Coach, that would be a neat honor. It'd be cool." And he looked at my parents and kind of asked the same thing. He said, "Hey, whatever Luke wants, we'll support." And he said, "Okay, it's done." Call Bob Hamill. Let's get this out there. Luke's coming to Indiana, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. I went with it. I'm glad I did. It was a great experience. I loved it, and but that's seriously kind of how it happened, and so that's how I ended up at Indiana University.
You had the opportunity and probably honor to play for 3 of the most high-profile college coaches at that time in the game. Coach Olson's retired since now, but tell us a little bit about those 3 coaches and your experience playing for each of them.
All great experiences. Coach Knight obviously is an icon. Great coach. I learned a lot from him from an X's and O's standpoint. I don't think there's a better guy out there. Like I said, Coach Knight, he never treated me worse than anybody else. It wasn't like I was picked out as somebody that he yelled at more than anybody else. But yeah, he was a tough guy to play for. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But again, I'm thankful for my experiences. I wish him the best. Yeah, he's a good announcer now. That's for sure. It's an entertaining announcer. And it was 2 good years, and for whatever reason, I decided to move on, and I had the opportunity, a very short time at Lute Olson at Arizona. Lute's one of the classiest people you ever meet, and obviously I had experienced some adversity in my life at that time, with the car accident, etc. And Lute sat me down and said, "Listen, first and foremost, I want you to be happy as a person in your personal life, and if that means getting back closer to your family, I'll do what I can to help." And he was. I've to this day kept in touch with Lute Olson. That tells you what type of person he is. And then, I ended up at Iowa. I had a prior relationship with Steve Alford, and my dad was living in Washington, Iowa at the time. It was just kind of natural for me to go back there. It was something I really considered going to after leaving Indiana, and it was nice to be back home. And I'm glad I did. I fell in love with everybody out there, and I met my wife, and it's been a great thing.
Your senior year at Iowa, maybe the experience you had especially during the Big Ten tournament that year.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I love the University of Iowa, Indiana University as well. I had a great time. They're both terrific schools. My senior year at Iowa, obviously some of the best memories I have to be the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis. It wasn't the best year, but team-wise, we had high expectations and kind of didn't meet those expectations. But the Big Ten tournament was a lot of fun. Having the opportunity to beat Wisconsin on a last-second shot, and then Indiana, and I think we beat Purdue the first game there as well. So anytime you can beat Indiana and Purdue in the same weekend, it's fun.
Yeah, if I recall, was it baseline jumper to the right? You hit right at the buzzer there to win.
Yeah,
was that the Wisconsin game or the IU game?
That was the IU game. That was the Wisconsin game was against Devin Harris, who is an NBA point guard. I can't remember what team he's with now, but it's funny because my wife's from Madison, Wisconsin. I spent a lot of time in the off season training in Madison, and I'd see Devin a lot and kind of joke around with him about that game, and he would joke around with me about it, but I don't think he's doing too poorly going on like 9 or 10 years in the NBA. So,
what was it like from a player's mindset, and then being able to win the Big Ten tournament, having the opportunity to play in the big dance, if you will, in the big tournament?
Well, it's like all new season. Everybody's excited because it's just like what I was talking about with one-class basketball. It's anybody can beat anybody. You see it every year. You see the 15s always upset the number 2s. Obviously, we haven't had a 16 upset of 1 yet, but I think that day is coming because there's just so much parity in college basketball, and you just never know if you get hot at the right time. I mean, UConn last year gets. They didn't have the best season, but they get hot at the right time and they win the national championship. And I think anybody that goes into the NCAA tournament really feels like they have an opportunity to win it.
What was the furthest you were ever able to get in the tournament?
Second round every year. My first year, I think we beat Oklahoma maybe, and then we got beat by UConn beat us. And then my second year, we beat George Washington, then we got beat by St. John's when they had Ron Artest and Eric Barkley, and then when I was at Iowa, we got beat by Kentucky in the second round. We beat Creighton and got beat by Kentucky. So, yeah, but it's just a lot of fun. It's the NCAA tournament. There's nothing like it. I think even from a fan perspective today, I'm obviously a big fan of college basketball. It's those are 2 days that if I can get 2 days off of work, that Thursday and Friday where those first and second round games are a lot of fun to watch.
I believe it was your freshman season at IU. It just happened to pop into my head. The game that you guys won when you got the steal right at the end and went down and dunked it. Ohio State had Michael Redd, I believe.
And that was my freshman year. That was a big game for us. That was the only time I actually played in St. John's Arena before they built the new Schottenstein Center there. And it was a great memory, great game. Michael Redd's actually, he was a friend of mine, and it's always good to beat friends like that on a last second dunk, I guess.
Once you graduated and left Iowa, and I believe it was Miami Heat that you had the opportunity?
It's every kid grows up with that, having the opportunity to play professional basketball, and obviously I wanted to get to the NBA. That was my ultimate goal. Fell a little bit short, but I'm really proud of what I accomplished. It was a great experience, and I worked really hard and had some opportunities. Went to camp with the Heat and was there for a couple months, and just one of those things. I was really close a couple times and had opportunities in Europe. Took the opportunities in Europe, and I look back on it. I'm really thankful for everything the way it worked out because. Like I said, you have these dreams of playing in the NBA, and you feel like, if it doesn't work out, I won't ever be able to go on. But I was fortunate enough to continue my career in Europe, and really thankful for those experiences.
I believe Pat Riley was the coach then?
He's a great, I like Coach Riley. He demands a lot, he expects a lot, but you should. If you're a professional basketball player, you should, give your best every day. And he demands his guys to be in top physical condition. And he's a great coach. Listening to his stories, I'll tell you what, it's talking about, just my brief time with him. He's talking about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson when he was coaching the Lakers. And we're sitting here just like this, and he's telling a story about how Bird missed a jumper at the buzzer to win the game. And he said, Bird winks at him and says, "You got lucky that time, Coach. Next time it's not going to happen." So that type of stuff was really neat. I've been really fortunate to, not only Pat Riley, I've had the opportunity to, sit down with Coach John Wooden while he was alive in his apartment in L.A. and talk basketball with him. And I've been really blessed. Basketball's been really good to me. It was a really important part of my life for a long time, and it's kind of strange to not be doing it anymore. But I'm really happy where I'm at in my life now, and so I've been really, really blessed.
Your career in Europe, being able to play 7 years over there. What's it like playing in, I believe you went Italy there, and but tell us about that. And is the arena situations the way the fans are, like what we hear it is?
It is. It's absolutely insane. It was really neat. It was a great experience. I played 2 years in Italy, 4 in Spain. So I played 7 years professionally, 6 of those in Europe. And it was phenomenal. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. While you're going through it, sometimes you're, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't deal with this. But looking back on it, I'm really glad I did. People are smoking in the games. There's clouds of smoke in the games. You have your benches are covered in plexiglass because the fans get so crazy. They start throwing coins and stuff at you. I mean, they're really passionate, crazy. There's a fine line, but it was fun. The crowds were incredible. It's just different. It's a different style of basketball and probably more conducive to the way I played, especially after a few injuries and stuff. You kind of lose a little bit of athleticism, but was fortunate enough to still play there.
Was that mostly when the people would throw things? Was that as a visiting player?
Yeah,
or the home folks get on once in a while?
The home folks were pretty good. Basketball's a very popular sport there. Obviously, soccer is the #1 sport in the world, especially in Europe. But over there, basketball is growing quickly in popularity, and it's no doubt the second most popular sport over there. And you go to it wasn't uncommon for us to play Real Madrid or FC Barcelona and have 15,000 fans, and they're going wild, and fans really love you. But when you play opposing teams, I was just telling the story the other day. We were playing a team in Italy, and it's different because the top 2 teams from the second division move up to the first division, and the 2 bottom teams in the first division move down to the second division. So it would be like Detroit Tigers finish in last place, so they go to AAA. Well, the Toledo Mud Hens finish in first place, so they're moving up to Major League Baseball. And it's kind of fun how they do it because you're always playing for something. And we sent a team in Italy down to the second division, and we were on the road, and the buzzer sounds. And it's just like you see, when you watch SportsCenter or something over there, like police and riot gear, and the fans just start rushing the floor and attacking us. I swear to God. So we run to the locker room. We're in the locker room for a couple hours, and they're getting all the riot police out there so we can at least get to our bus. And they put this protective shield around us so we can get to our bus. And as soon as we get on the bus, all of a sudden you hear rocks and stone. Hitting our bus, and I swear a rock this big goes through the window and almost hits a teammate of mine. And it's just, it's wild. It's wild. It wasn't like that every night, but like I said, that's where you kind of cross the line, becoming a passionate fan to being crazy. But it's a fun atmosphere to play in. That's how it kind of was in Italy. Italy and Greece are kind of known for their fans like that. Spain was a little bit more civilized, I guess, and I spent 4 of my years in Spain. We trained 7 days a week, and while you weren't training, you had film work and different things. It was a lot of work, but that being said, you would have a day or 2 off every now and then, and it was really neat to be able to, explore some of those places and see the history. And playing in Italy 2 years, spent a lot of time in Rome and the Vatican. And
much difference in the coaching styles between Europe and here?
It's just a different style of basketball. It's basically what you see in Olympic play. I played a lot of my teammates over in Europe were guys you see in the Olympics, and my coaches as well. I played for a coach that was like a Croatian national team coach, and it's just it's a lot less one-on-one. The NBA, while it's a great product and great athletes, I mean they have their rules set up a certain way so that you can see the high-flying dunks, and it's on SportsCenter. Over there, it's more it's team basketball. Like I said, it's what you see in the Olympics. That's why the NBA players struggle in international competition because you don't have the defensive rules. You can play zone, and that's the kind of basketball we played every night, and it was fun. It was pure basketball, and you see a lot of the European players that come over here are so skilled fundamentally because they spend a lot of time working on fundamentals, and they're maybe not the athletes that we have in the NBA, but they know how to play basketball. It was fun basketball, and you can make a decent living, and I lasted 31 years before I had to get a real job.
What was the telltale sign? What made you decide it was time to retire?
My body was really going bad. I had some knee troubles, obviously, in college, and those kind of stuck with me. And when you're kind of living, when you're 28, 29 years old, living on anti-inflammatories and taking injections before games and stuff, that made it tough. And then another thing was the birth of my daughter. When it was just my wife and I, it was a little bit more manageable. But having a daughter over there, I traveled a lot. I would be in Lithuania or Belgrade, Serbia, and my wife and daughter are back in Spain. And it was just harder. So at that time, you kind of realized that, hey, there's life after basketball, and I decided it was probably getting time to hang up the shoes, and I did.
Any aspirations to get into coaching or anything at some
You
point?
kind of think that's your natural progression, and I thought maybe I would get into coaching. I definitely explored that. Talked to a lot of coaches that I had played for and I knew, and it's a tough gig. I mean, I think anybody that's a coach will tell you it's hard to get into. Had I been 23, 24 years old, and I probably would have explored it more, because then you start off as a graduate assistant, kind of work your way up.
Luke, thank you so
Thanks, bud.
very, very much for taking your time out of your busy holiday schedule.
It's always fun to come back to Auburn and see a lot of friends and family, and it was a great place to grow up, and feel really fortunate for everything, and thanks for all the support.
Former DeKalb Bear great, always DeKalb Bear, Luke Recker, number 24, and we certainly appreciate him joining us here this morning. And Bernie Provensky along with Luke Recker for Ben Davis Sports Talk.
This is the original. Look at that. Yeah. See the smells.
I think I still got your DNA in there.
That is all.